Hey there viewers, I'll just say this right now. I'm terrified of flying. Every time I have to board a plane, I'm a nervous wreck. The thought of being mid-air, thousands of feet above the earth, having no control over anything, sends a shiver down my spine. But I keep reminding myself that air travel is generally safe. It's not like my plane would vanish into thin air. But what if it could? That's exactly what happened with Malaysian Air Flight MH370. It disappeared without a trace. In today's video, we'll be discussing everything related to missing flight MH370. What exactly could have happened? What are the various theories? We'll discuss all of these and more. In an age where we can track everything, it seems nearly impossible for an entire plane to vanish. But that's exactly what happened with the Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 back in 2014. It was traveling to Beijing from Kuala Lumpur with 239 passengers when it just went missing. How did this happen? A look at the facts. The MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport on March the 8th, 2014 at 12:42 a.m. The flight path took it over the South China Sea. It was over this area that the flight last made contact with air traffic control, with the message, "Good night, Malaysian 370," at 1:19 a.m. The flight was last sighted at 2:22 a.m. through military radar. Usually, if there is trouble on a flight, a distress call is sent out, but there were no distress calls from this flight, nor were there any messages sent by passengers through their phones. Along with 2 pilots and 10 flight attendants, the flight had passengers from a number of different nationalities. The majority were citizens of China and Malaysia, but the passengers also included people from the United States, Australia, India, Russia, and New Zealand, among others. Search history. When the MH370 disappeared, there was a wide search for it. In fact, it was one of the largest hunts since the aviation industry began. One team from Australia searched for 3 years, covering as much as 120,000 square kilometers. They had no success. Other countries whose citizens were on board the flight also played a part in the operations. Malaysia had a major role, as the flight came from their country. During the initial days of the search, the focus was on Vietnam in the South China Sea, as well as close to Penang in the Strait of Malacca. But on March the 15th, the then Malaysian Prime Minister updated the world on new data they acquired. The flight had apparently changed course and was set to fly over the Indian Ocean. The Malaysian leader also said the transponder on the MH370 was disabled. This transponder is located in the cockpit of the plane. This transponder helps radars keep track of the flight's path. British satellites showed it was likely the plane crashed in the South Indian Ocean. Searches were conducted around 2,500 kilometers southwest of the Australian city of Perth. There was no luck, and the searches were stopped in January 2017. It took another year for the searches to continue. This was done by a marine robotics company called Ocean Infinity in the South Indian Ocean, but that only lasted 6 months and ended in June of 2018. Whatever audio clips they had from the cockpit did not give any real information about the disappearance. Experts said there was nothing sinister about the messages. The flight's black boxes, which would have all the information, were never recovered. Since the searches have been halted, a few pieces of debris from the flight have made it to the shore. This confirms the theory that the flight likely disappeared over the Indian Ocean. The lead investigator for the crash ruled out any suspicions that the pilot deliberately crashed the plane. The investigating team said it was likely the controls of the plane were manipulated, but they were unable to determine how or by whom, and what the real cause of the disappearance was. What are the prevailing theories? Since the flight disappeared, there have been a number of theories put forward. These theories have ranged from the absurd to the plausible. Some have suggested a hijack attempt or a suicide bid, while others have even put forward the theory of an alien abduction. One theory suggests the disappearance could be linked to cargo the flight was carrying. It had large shipments of mangosteens. It suggested that lithium-ion batteries combined with the mangosteens to cause a lethal explosion. Another theory suggests the oxygen supply may have malfunctioned. This could have knocked out everyone on the flight. If this happens, it would have been impossible to send out a distress call. One pilot even suggests the oxygen malfunction theory could explain why the flight changed course and headed towards Penang. The pilot may have been trying to attempt an emergency landing at the Penang airport. With everyone on the plane incapacitated, the plane may have just continued its course on the Indian Ocean until the fuel ran out. One journalist from France wrote a book on the disappearance. She suggests the flight may have been shot when it was above the South China Sea. She theorizes that intelligence agencies then cleaned up all the debris and covered it up. Another journalist, based out of Hong Kong, suggested the flight was actually carrying military equipment. She believes the plane was shot down in an attempt to retrieve its cargo. What next? While the search has more or less been abandoned, some experts are still trying to solve the mystery. A British retiree named Richard Godfrey has suggested that he has calculated the coordinates of the flight's crash site. According to Godfrey, the plane likely crashed 2,000 kilometers away from Perth. Godfrey is a credible expert in these matters. He's part of the MH370 independent group of scientists, which was formed by researchers who were looking into the plane's disappearance. Godfrey said he took the help of weak signal propagation reporter WSPR technology to zero in on the crash location. This technology covers the entire world with radio signals. If there is any disturbance in the waves, it gets recorded. Godfrey said the MH370 triggered a number of these radio signals just before it disappeared completely. He used the data from WSPR technology as well as satellites. He also took into account debris drift data. With all this information, Godfrey believes he has figured out the location of the crash. Godfrey has already provided this data during the virtual remembrance event conducted this year, but he also mentioned that the area was already searched. Since the terrain is rough, it includes canyons and volcanoes, it may not have been possible to find the plane. Even the Australian Transport Safety Bureau said they had already searched the location pointed out by Godfrey. They said they covered a good amount of the area, but couldn't find anything. The Bureau still asked Geoscience Australia to take another look at the data and make sure nothing has been overlooked. Even the Malaysian authorities are keen on continuing the search. They are waiting to see if Godfrey's findings prove to be credible. If they are, they would consider coordinating with China and Australia to restart the search party. During the remembrance event, the Malaysian Transport Minister also said they had not abandoned their quest to find the flight. As long as they have credible evidence, they're ready to launch another expedition. Ocean Infinity, which had previously conducted a search in 2018, also offered to do another expedition. They plan to do it either next year or in 2024. The company is waiting for their remote-controlled ships to be ready. Governments and agencies are also keen on finding the remnants of the flight. It's important for the safety of future commercial flights to understand what happened to the MH370. Some feel the search was stopped too early. Finding the debris, and especially the black box, would help figure out what happened. Safety measures can be brought in to stop anything like this from happening in the future. Other mysterious disappearances of airplanes. Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart was the first woman to cross the Atlantic Ocean by plane in 1928. She was also the first woman to fly across the pond in 1932, but she met her tragic and mysterious end in July 1937 while flying around the world. She disappeared near the international dateline in the Central Pacific. Experts speculated for a long time about what could have happened. Some put forth theories like Amelia being stranded on an uninhabited island for years, but nothing is known with absolute certainty. Flying Tiger Flight 739. Tragedy struck once again in 1962 during the preliminary stages of the Vietnam War. United States Army Flying Tiger Flight 739 was on its way from Guam to the Philippines, but the flight suddenly vanished over the Mariana Trench in the Pacific. There were members of the Standard oil tanker in the area who reportedly witnessed a large explosion in the sky. Investigators believe this explosion was linked to the plane. It was seen approximately an hour after the plane's final communication. The surprising part were no distress calls were made to any air traffic controllers. This makes it difficult for the investigators to pin down a reason behind the bizarre disappearance. The true cause still remains a mystery. Only speculation and theories exist to this day. Flight 19, Bermuda Triangle. Not one, but 6 planes disappeared in 1945. On one fateful day, the weather was fine when 5 Avenger torpedo bombers took off from their base at Fort Lauderdale, Florida. They were headed to bombing practice in the Bermuda Triangle. The 5 planes lost communication with the ground station after facing problems with their compasses. The ground station could still follow communications between the pilots of the planes. Through these communications, the ground staff learned that the pilots got disorientated about their locations. They all decided once the first plane dropped below 10 gallons of fuel, all planes were to land at sea. An intensive search operation was carried on by the Coast Guard and Navy for over 5 days. During the operation, another plane carrying 13 passengers disappeared, never to be found again. To this day, we still don't know what caused the disappearance of the 6 planes. There are so many mysteries to uncover, so many questions that need answers. Interested in delving into some more? Let's keep the conversation going with a couple more curiosity-raising videos. Here are some things you might like. Check out Weird Things That Only Happen in North Korea. You can also try our video on Why Airplanes Don't Fly Over the Himalayas and Pacific Ocean. Go ahead, click one, or better yet, watch both, and learn more about mysteries that have intrigued us for a long time. Did you know about the disappearance of Flight MH370 before watching this video? Let us know in the comments below.